All righty. I am live. I was supposed to do this last week, but didn't get a chance to. And so let me make sure my phone is turned down. And as people realize I'm gone live, what I'm going to talk about is audio recording and the music business. So now with that being said, as wait for people to tune in, I'll take my glasses off. What I want to talk about is I'm going to talk about some of the responses that I got. Some people want me to talk about gear. Some people have no interest in the music industry. I think that the music industry, if you want to pursue a career, is important. But then there are probably some people on my channel that probably want to better their skills at running a studio or engineering or whatever. And what I'm going to say on that aspect is I would not say I know everything about engineering. I'm not going to say I know everything about engineering, but I am going to say that I do know enough. So, with that being said, like I said, uh, as I wait for people to get tuned, I'm just going to keep chatting along. And if you got any questions, just fire away. So, basically, um, with the music industry, let's talk about the music industry first. I think that what I didn't realize was how much we don't know, um, or what I didn't know. And I think that the biggest issue is the record labels usually don't want people to know, because if you're well informed, you probably would take a closer look at those contracts they're presenting. Um, and if you're well informed, you'll realize something like uh, preparatory or basically, I think what happens is most people don't know that, excuse me, when you signed a record deal, basically you were signing a work for hire type of contract. And so a lot of times I think recording artists, when they do music, they figure everything that they're recording is rightfully theirs. And in some instances, we would say, yeah, that music that you did in the studio is rightfully yours, but it actually isn't. Um, because technically, if you look at it, if you didn't write the lyrics or the music or nothing like that, you just sung someone else's song, it's still not rightfully yours, whether you recorded it or not. It really actually belongs to the songwriter. I think that the biggest confusing thing for me for a long time was the understanding that there's two copyrights, and there's two copyrights on purpose. And the two copyrights that were on purpose was the fact that I didn't understand this for a long time. I didn't understand that I thought a song, whether you listen to it on the radio or whatever the case may be, I thought that was all one thing. Didn't realize they're actually two separate things. And so because of that, there are rights, or they go with both mechanical and performance rights. And I was like, well, what's the difference? And I realized mechanical rights is your rights that to sell the song. And how do you sell the song? By attaching it to some sort of media format, such as a CD, cassette, vinyl, um, and so forth, or Um, and one thing I didn't understand either was I didn't realize that streaming websites such as Pandora or even Spotify were. I didn't know that those were what they call, even though they're streaming and playing the music like almost like a radio, but technically they're reproducing music that's being played by and because they're reproducing music, anything that needs to be reproduced requires mechanical rights. So this is what another thing I never didn't understand publishing for a long time. And so I've always heard of BMI and ASCAP. And then I realized, well, the performance rights organizations basically, they're basically looking out for the artist to collect royalties on behalf of the publisher company and the songwriter. Never knew that a recording artist, unless they are the songwriter, they're not entitled to performance rights royalties. Another thing that I didn't realize, I used to think that if every time something's being played on the radio, that it was it fell with the point where BMI or ASCAP would collect royalties on that behalf of the artist, but they're not. It really depends on the radio and if there were type of. I didn't realize that radio stations were there were reporting type of radio stations, then there are non-reporting type of radio stations. So I didn't know that either. So there was so much about the music industry that I did not know. So, oh, I got somebody popping in. Okay, let me see. I got to put my glasses on. Oh, what's going on? How you doing, L? You said you went with ASCAP. Yeah, originally, I was ASCAP, then I went to BMI, but I'm actually trying to go back to ASCAP. I think, they say there are between CSAC, ASCAP, and BMI. ASCAP being, for songwriter, composers, authors, songwriter, composers association, authors and publishers. I gotta remember the acronym. I can't remember, but they say that they pay faster than BMI. I think that they say that ASCAP will pay you whether you got, let's say you earned $10 in royalties or $100 in royalties. ASCAP will pay you. I think BMI will only pay you if you reached a certain amount of you. This is my understanding. This is my understanding that if you, let's say if you were with BMI, I think you have to make a minimum of $100 before they pay you. I have to check that out again. I can't. I don't know if that's. I don't know what that means. That's written in a language I can't understand, so I can't. Yes, BMI. I think you have to wait $100 or something like that before they pay. Yeah, exactly. That's what I think, and I think that's where a lot of people have a discrepancy with BMI over ASCAP. I think you can have $20 and ASCAP will pay you, irregardless. And I think it's a certain amount of time frame like that. And I think CSAC also pays, but CSAC is like an exclusive performance right organization. But a lot of times, I think when we talk about whether it's CSAC, I think it's PRI for if you're from Europe. If you're CSAC or BMI or ASCAP, or one of those performance right, I think we concentrate on the performance right, but we forget about the mechanical royalties. And I didn't know this for a long time that if you are your own independent artist, and you are uploading your music to Spotify and Pandora, you also want to make sure that you have a mechanical or a mechanical rights organization that you're affiliated with, so they can collect mechanical royalties on your behalf more than just the performance. Because mechanicals covers your royalties for selling a product. But I used to think Spotify and Pandora was just, like, because they're streaming, that I thought they fell under like the radio category, but they actually don't. I was shocked. I was like, really? And a few friends of mine didn't know that either. So if your stuff is on Pandora or Spotify or anything like that, you definitely want to make sure that you are, like, for example, there's Harry Fox or there's Easy Song, and companies like that. So I don't. It says Proctor. I'm not trying to ignore you. I don't understand that language. VOR.ONG. I don't know what that means. So okay, you're asking, do you recommend Distro Kid, CD Baby, United Master Set? I've heard between 1 RPM and Distro Kid. I've heard 1 RPM and Distro Kid, out of all of them, are some of the best, the better distributors, because I heard that CD Baby, they want to take a big, large amount of your royalties under the distribution. In other words, and I think they charge more to upload songs. I think CD Baby, when it first started, was a great platform, especially for independent artists, but their rates are kind of high. I think Distro Kid, you pay one fee, but you have unlimited amount of uploads compared to CD Baby. I think CD Baby charges per song or something like that. I have to look at all their criteria. Also, I think if you want CD Baby to be your publisher, if you don't start your own publishing company, I think CD Baby takes more of a percentage of the royalties. So if you distribute songs, and let's say it happened to get on radio and things like that, I think they take a more percentage cut. So you just have to research that yourself. Look at I would like all of them, between CD Baby, Distro Kid, 1 RPM. There's about 20 of them. Look at the price to look at what a price if you could just have unlimited uploads, because some people have hundreds of songs. Or do you think that it's, CD Baby was really more for people that was uploading, CD projects, independent artists that were uploading CD projects, but I think they had to change their format to suit the more, because more and more people are starting to do singles. Singles was a big thing in the 40s and 50s. They didn't really release albums until around the 60s. And I think albums started off with, maybe that's when, if you had a vinyl, you had 2 or 3 songs on one side and you could flip it, and 2 or 3 songs on the other side. And then as they were able to get more songs on a vinyl, that's the reason why the album became big. But I think the problem with albums for the longest, for years, that everyone has always complained about an album compared to a single, was that you would buy someone's album and you would only like maybe 4 or 5 songs out of 8 or 9 or 10. Sometimes some people say every single song is good, but there's sometimes where somebody have a song and there's only 1 song on the entire album. So I'm kind of glad we're back in a singles independent song thing, and you can buy an individual song instead of buying an entire album. Sometimes there's songs, and it can be some of the greatest artists in the world. I don't like every single song Stevie Wonder's ever done. So I'm glad that you can buy singles. But I would go back, as far as those distributors, I would definitely look at their requirements and as far as what percentage they're going to split and what percentage they're going to take if you start making money off your music. Elsie said, I think I'm going to go back to releasing a bunch of singles again. People don't appreciate albums these days. Albums also take too much work and they require cohesion. And see, the thing with, and what's great about, everybody's going back to EPs now, where you do a 3, 4, 5 song EP, which stands for extended play, right? You would have at the time, with an album, the reason why people used to release albums in the first place, because record labels can make more money selling an album because they can charge more for a complete album, more songs. Because the record business, the record labels are in a business of selling songs. That's why they want to own your masters, because they can sell those. The more songs, for example, the standard is to attach, when you have these codes of works on an album, the standard is 0.091 cents per song per album. If you can get 10, 12 songs on an album, they can charge more for the album. In other words, if I can charge you $12.99 for this album of 12 songs, instead of just forcing you to buy each individual single, I can make more money. That's what the record label's angles are. But it doesn't benefit, because sometimes these recording artists would have to go to the studio and try to find at least 10 or 12 songs. If not more, they would go to the studio with the producers and the musicians to create all these songs, to find at least 10 or 12 good songs that they're going to bring to the A&R, so the A&R can bring it to the label, so they can say, okay, these are the 12 songs that they came up with, and the record label say, yeah, okay, those are good. We're going to go ahead and release them. Sometimes the artists, because that's the reason why a lot of artists, that's the reason why a lot of times the artists couldn't come up with good songs fast enough, because they were on the timeline. The record label say, okay, I need you to come up with 12 songs. Let's say today is the 23rd of January. We get an anticipated release date of May 15th, 2022, right? Or 2022, yeah. Let's say the release date is projected for May 15th, 2022. I need 12 good songs from you for that release date. The artists have to come up with 12 songs. The artists might already have 12 songs, but they might bring 12 songs, and those 12 songs may not, the record, that's not commercial enough for us. We want to make sure that we're going to make money back. So you need to go back. So now the recording artist and producer got to go back to the studio, waste more researchers, spend more studio time, and they run into, that's how they run out of money. And if they don't have a good enough songs to release by that release date, the record label say, okay, well, we can't release you, so we're not gonna release the project, and you're gonna have to wait, because now we got to focus on other artists, and that's why some artists get shelved. It says hello. Okay, hello. Have you ever offered any service on Fiverr? Is that Fiverr? I've never heard of Fiverr, so no, I haven't. So I haven't heard of Fiverr, so I haven't. But anyway, welcome to the channel. Hello, welcome to the channel. It says double albums were also a big thing at one time too. Double CDs and tapes were double the money. Exactly. So you think about it, you got 12 songs on one CD. You do a double CD, $23.99. Well, you do the math. If the record label can sell a double CD for $23.99 and they can sell 1 million of those, you do the math. Plus there's tax and all that. So you're talking practically $25 a double CD times 1 million. Well, there you go, $25 million. And if they can get double platinum and get 2 million people to buy that double CD, that's $50 million. Well, guess what? 80 to 85% of that's going to go back to the label. So if you do the math, 50 million, well, guess what? 40 to 42 to 43 million goes back to the label. The other 7 million, and then the artist still got, remember how much did they finance the artist to go cut that album? because they advanced the artist studio time and everything else. $50,000, $500,000. They got to pay that back, and then if the album's any good, now they need tour support money, so the artist can go on tour, and this thing gets big, Yeah, $25. But believe it or not, a lot of us, when we say El says $25 was a big deal in the 90s. Yeah. If you think about it, because as consumers, and when we buy the albums, we think, oh man, out of at least 20, 22 songs, 24 songs, at least maybe 8, 9, 10, or 11 would be good enough to justify that we spent $25 on these album projects. But sometimes some people realize that you can buy an album and it's only got 3 songs on there. And you can be mad because you're like, well, I spent $10, $12 on CDs, only got 3 songs. That happens because the artists and the producers were trying to they weren't really trying to be using artistic creativity. They were trying to come up with commercial material they think people would like, yet still trying to be different. And sometimes the record labels would take a chance on it and release it. Sometimes they wouldn't. So let's see. And then Tupac sold 5 million copies of his double CD for his first year. He sold 500,000 in the first week. Well, look at Tupac, coming from Digital Underground, and Tupac being famous. We're talking 1992. We're talking 1991, 92. And at the time, Tupac was one of those rappers that, he already had popularity. He was already gaining popularity from Digital Underground. So you go back to, you can look at Me Against the World or, Machiavelli and all those different albums he cut. Tupac, just like with Biggie Smalls. And the reason why you could sell that many in the first week is because, you think about it as a distributor, you press, let's say you press 500,000 and they go out to the stores. That's when all the record stores were out. Walmart wasn't a real big music distributor. Neither was Best Buy at the time in the early 90s. It was more just record stores in the malls and all that. Well, if you go to the store, they got, Tupac's new album, because they would advertise that, these anticipated, and that all comes from the marketing and promotion department of a record label. They would say, okay, this album by this artist is going to be released on this date, and they're going to hit the stores on this date. And people got the notification, so they would wait. Some people wait in line to get the new Tupac album or whatever, the new Black Sheep album or whatever the case may be. So that was how that worked. And that across the United States, they would sell out. And so the record stores would have to order more, meaning the record labels and the distributors have to go back to the manufacturers and press more. So it was a great time, especially for the record labels out of everyone. That was the biggest moneymaker for the record labels. It really didn't benefit the artists as much as it did the record labels. Hello says, Fiverr, it's a place where an entrepreneur, an artist can offer services like mixing, mastering, or writing a personalized song, along with entrepreneurs offering other things like writing. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay. I'm going to have to check that out. That's new to me. Okay. All right. I'm going to have to check that out. Whenever someone presents something, I like to do my research. So I'm going to, thanks. Hello. I would check that out. Let me see. Biggie's Life After Death was also a double CD. It went diamond, but unfortunately he wasn't alive to see it. The sad part about Biggie and that album was, like all recording artists, believe it or not, that was one of the conspiracies. Even though we know what happened now with Tupac, we thought Suge Knight had something to do with it because Tupac was going to actually leave, Death Row and actually go get with Master P, and because Master P was going to offer him a better deal because Tupac really wasn't getting all his money with Death Row under Suge Knight. So Tupac was going to actually go and hook up with Master P. That's why people thought Suge Knight had something to do with that. But it turned out the guy named Anderson, he got in a beef with in that hotel and in Las Vegas, and he beat the dude up. Him and the group, and because Tupac wanted to be a gangster. I don't know why Tupac should just concentrate on his artist career. He wanted to be in that gangster life because you talking about living a thug life, and Anderson was an actual real Crip, so they went back in Vegas and looked for, and that's when, and of course they found out he shot him. And of course, the same guy that shot Tupac, got killed 2 years later in a robbery in California. But that's what happened to Tupac. But Biggie is the one I'm trying to figure out, because Biggie got killed, because Biggie being from New York, but Biggie got killed in California. But the record label on that double CD also benefited from the sales of Biggie's. He benefited from Biggie Smalls' sales, like all record labels. And that was the biggest thing. When the reason why these record labels benefit from the sales, because the record labels can benefit from the sales because recording artists sign contracts saying that all songs done, we own the masters, basically the master sound recordings. As long as you own this master sound recordings, we own the mechanical rights, so we can collect all royalties to the record label. That's how they would sign a contract. And the artist was like, that's why the artist like, well, I want my masters back. But I tell an artist, out of anything, you can own, even if you had a contract, if you were a songwriter with a recording, or if you were a song artist, a recording artist with a record label, you want to be able to write, so that way at least you can collect, because the performance rights go to the songwriter. So this is the reason why, for example, Mariah Carey, even though when she first had her debut with Vision of Love, and a lot of her mechanical rights went to that label, she still collected the performance rights because she wrote all the songs. So whenever they play Vision of Love and all them songs for that first album, she still collected the royalties on it, not the label. That's what happened. Versus you have artists like Whitney Houston who didn't write. Like, when she did the song I Will Always Love You, the Dolly Parton song. Well, even though Whitney Houston would make the money performing it live, because touring and performing live, the money that you get from touring goes to the artist. But the performance, the mechanical rights that the record label got the license from the songwriter, for the publishing company to re-perform I Will Always Love You, they got the sales right of the CD from Whitney Houston, but the performance rights that collected for the song being played on radio and everything else went to Dolly Parton because she wrote the song. So, welcome, Alfredo. Welcome. It says, last night I was recording my songs in Studio 1.5 using compression. KT2A interface is my digital mixer. My preamp is Art Voice Channel. Okay, I know what that is. After recording, the playback had no sound. What did I do wrong? Make sure that if you went into Studio One and your interface, you got to make sure that you set up your input and your output routing. You got to make sure the Studio One sees that interface. Other than that, other things, just make sure, of course, you have your mic plugged up if you're using vocals, whatever. You got to make sure that your levels are set. But if you don't have the signal routing set up, or even you got to make sure Studio One saw your interface. A lot of times in Studio 1.5, you know how you can go into Studio One and you have the very first page is your start page, then you have your song page, and of course you got professional, you got your project page. Make sure your start page, you make sure your interface is configured for Studio One to see your interface. If not, it's going to default to if you got Windows, it's going to say Window Audio, or if you have ASIO for All installed or whatever, or if you have a Mac, it's the same thing. It's going to see as a basic interface, and so you won't see signal. So make sure you go back into Studio One, make sure you configure your interface, and make sure it sees it. Sometimes you can hit the scroll down list and your interface, if you got the drivers or whatever the case, if you're Mac or PC, Even though you got a Mac, a lot of times with Macs, you don't have to download drivers. I always download drivers for Mac or PC anyway. But make sure that you got the driver set, and then after that, you just go back, and if it sees it, make sure Studio One sees it. And after that, once you get into your song to record, make sure you go to your channel, whatever track you're recording on, and look at the input and output, and make sure it sees that interface. And then always check your levels to make sure you got levels on your meters. If you got levels, it's there. But if it's no levels, and if you still have no output, make sure you look on your master, the same thing, and make sure that the output is going to go to the interface. As far as the art channel, of course, on the art channel, of course, you got your preamp, your gain, your gain, and of course your master out. You just got to make sure your levels are right. Check your meter and make sure that you're not going to overload on your meter on your pro channel that's plugged into your interface. And then just go from there. But that's what I would do first. So now, but here's the next question. If you had signal, there's no output, I would just check the output. Go back into Studio One, look on that track, and look at the input and output. A lot of times, if you have it on the mixer, usually it's kind of at the top. But if you have it at the on the track, you just have to go over there and look at inputs and outputs on the left of the screen and hit inputs and see if you got your routing set up. Also check into your I/O setting of your Studio One and make sure that the routing is there in your routing setup in your routing window. Also, because if that's not set up, the interface is not going to do anything. Now let me see. Artists don't even get. Let me see. El says artists don't even get to keep their performance money anymore with the 360 deal. That's why when they went from the 50-50 or the joint venture type of record deals or whatever, that's where you would just say, okay, if you just I just need distribution, or you try to get a distribution deal with a record label. But the 360 deal, they taking a cut of your touring, your everything, because record labels aren't making any money anywhere else. They're not making off of CD sales anymore, so they have to look at so they're going to come up with a way. 360 deal is nothing but a revised version of what they call an artist manager's deal, where the manager got a cut of everything that the artist did. But it was split between the artist and the manager. Now the record labels took over those. But the 360 deal is just, to me, with the age of the internet, and you got YouTube and there's Vivo, and the radio and video still have a big significant point in an artist, but the internet is so popular now, and you got these streaming websites. I don't tell people because they charge so low for streaming per stream. I don't tell people to really don't bank all your money going to come from streaming. I would build up enough fan base so that you can build up enough money to try to travel and book small venues to make your money that way. Invest in your own sound system, become really good with your sound system until you can actually make more and more money on that. But that's what I would do. So Alfredo says, I have a MacBook Pro mid 2012. Yeah, those are still good, especially if you can flash them. And, we call them Hackintosh. You can Hackintosh, where you can actually, if you can get the sometimes there's a way you can flash the BIOS and all that in to get a higher operating system. This Mac only had Catalina. I got it on High Sierra right now. High Sierra works. So there's nothing wrong, with having an older Mac. This is an older Mac. This is a 2010 Mac, and I'm running Studio One 5 on mine with High Sierra. Back to the record labels. Record labels. Here's the thing, and I understand why record labels want to take so much, because they have so much artists. They are investing a lot of money. The problem that I have with record labels. The problem that I have with record labels is the recoupment. of everything versus we only recoup the stuff that is essential. Okay, I know you want to recoup your $500,000 advance or your $300,000 touring support, whatever. But try to recoup because they spent money at McDonald's or clothes or whatever, or that's a little silly. That's a little greedy. So let's see. Alfred said, I got each hardware on different channels on the mixer, but after recording, I can't mute the track and the volume level is on the fader. I wasn't sure if it was recording right. And I happen to have my Mac right here. I'm going to pull up Studio One. Oh, it might act funny to turn this on. Okay. Okay. We'll see what happened. I'm at the look on my Studio One. I'm gonna let it load up right quick. Sometimes I have to visually look and see what it's doing based on what you're telling me. But let me see. You're saying, and it's weird how my mixer set up. Cause usually I record an analog, but automatically set the USB. Let me see. And you said what kind of mixer you got? Interface is my digital mixer. What type of digital mixer do you have? I see. Are you? Did you have what's your digital mix? Is it like the Personas Live? Let me know what kind of digital mixer you have. Because sometimes if you're using your digital mixer, oh, it is a Studio Live Series 32SX. Okay, a lot of times with those Studio Live mixers, you have to set that up through the UC Net as well as your USB. And the USB will control will allow it to work as an interface. The UC Net allows you to use it as a DAW controller. But see, I run through a regular interface. A lot of times you have to go into your routing. I think you have to I don't necessarily think you have to go through the routing through Studio One. I think you have to make sure your routing is set up in the mixer itself. I don't own a Studio Live mixer. Actually, I would have to get back with you on that to double check. I don't have a Studio Live mixer, or if there's a YouTube page that if someone is on YouTube, try to set up your mixer in Studio One, I would probably go back to that video and see if there's a step that you might have missed or something. I do know for a fact, I'm real familiar with the mix because we have one of those Studio Live mixers at the church, but we're not using it to record into Studio One yet. We will be. We're not there yet. We're just using it as a live mixer. But my understanding, when you go to your Studio Live mixer, you got to order the utility section where it says home, and you got UC Net and all that. I think you have to go to hit UC Net, make sure that the mixer and make sure that your Studio One sees Studio Live. I'm pretty sure yours probably says Studio Live as the auto interface when you go to your start page. But definitely make sure. I would definitely make sure that you have it set on UC net. And I think even when you're recording through channels on your mixer, you know how you can look at your, and say in your on your channels, it would say analog, USB, UC net, and all that. I think you have to make sure it says either USB or UC net or something like that. I'm not for sure. It says my second interface I use is a Focusrite 18i20 Gen 3. So I think I'm gonna use that for now. But the mic I was using was a SM7B there, the Shure SM7B. You know what I would do if I were you, Alfred? I would go back and I would switch to the Focusrite and try to record through that first to see if you're not, make sure that way you'll know that the interface, that way you'll know the interface is, that is working in Studio One. So, but if not, I would definitely go back, because I know for a fact the UC net is Studio One to work for your mixer to work it as a DAW controller. You have to use the Ethernet, but you can use the mixer as an interface. So the interface should be capturing the recording, but to control your DAW, you have to do it through the Ethernet. It's weird how, I don't know why Personas did that with their live mixers. You would think, for example, like my fader port, when I run into Studio One saw the fader port. I didn't even have to set the DAW. It automatically set it up. But I don't know why the Personas didn't do that with their mixers. You would think, plug in the mixer, bam, I'm ready to go. Because it's like this Behringer in Studio One, everything works. Everything works in it. So I can come over here, hit MIDI control, and all the faders are working. I don't know if you can kind of look. I don't know if I can, if you look at the screen here, if you kind of look at the screen here, this is the Behringer. It's working by USB. And you can see as I'm moving faders, you can see faders moving on the screen. I don't know why Personas didn't do that with their mixer. So Ronald says that you might want to go back and check the manual. You might be doing something wrong. Like I said, I don't own a Studio Live mixer here. We have one at the church. I have a friend. He got his set up in his studio back in Jersey, and he had that same issue at the beginning. So I got to go back and figure out what he did, because now his mixer's working in Studio One. So, okay, you said okay. But like I said, if the mixer isn't working with your mixer, you can still use the mixer and run it inputs and outputs for signal, and you can always run that in through the Focusrite and use our Focusrite as your interface. You can always do that too. But like I said, in Studio One, the first thing, I don't know if you can see that again, but the first thing I'm going to do right here is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at the input. I'm going to check the input and output right here, like my input. I'm going to look at the input. You can't really see that because I'm going to come over here and I'm going to check. I'm going to see if I get the mouse. I'm going to look at these inputs right here. Come over here closer to the camera. Look at your inputs and make sure that it's saying the interface, like your Studio Live, and then of course your main out, and then of course your main out. You want to check the outputs here. So you can click on that and make sure it's going to the proper output as well. That's what you want to do. So you come to your input, click on your input, make sure that you're selecting your input, because if you don't see the right input, it's not going to record properly. Also, you want to make sure you come up to your IUP page, your page right here, and you want to look and make sure that you got the proper routing on your interface to make sure that's seeing it as well. Okay, and it says, and I bought the microphones again. I'm looking forward to buying a mic, and I can't make up my mind for vocals, which is better, the AKG C414, XL2, or the Warm Audio W8 8002 condenser microphone. That Warm Audio W8 8000,
I think they want $1,000 for that mic. The AKG C414. It's a really, the AKG C414 is a really nice mic. I don't really like them for vocals. I think they shine better on guitars, but that's just my opinion. If you were going to get a mic, if it was me and you're looking at the Warm Audio, I think as for a vocal mic, I think you would be a lot happier with the Warm Audio like the WA-47 or even the WA-251. The WA-47 and 251 are $799. I would look at those first, but that's just my opinion. I know they're trying to say that the WA, which is an emulation of the Sony SA800, and they said there's a lot of hip hop, but you got to remember, some of the most common mics that most studios use for vocals was like the Neumann U87. Warm Audio has the WA87 microphone that's emulating the Neumann U87. So you don't let that with the WA200 or the WA8000, because that's a marketing ploy. And it's nothing against the mic. It's a great mic. But not all studios have them. And think about it. Those studios that didn't have that Sony SA800, they recorded with 251s, like the Telefunken 251 and a Neumann U87. So if you're gonna look at the Warm Audio, which make their replicas are really good, I would look at the 251 or the 47. That's just my opinion. Let me see. It says, when I record analog gear in Studio One, I use Pipeline. Do you think I use Pipeline? Do you think I'm doing something wrong there too? Like, once again, swap out your Studio Live as the interface. Use your Focusrite 18920 to see if it's the hookup and see if Studio One sees, because you can't run two interfaces at the same time in the software. It can only recognize one interface. So I would try to Focusrite and plug into the Focusrite and see. In other words, you plug it up. Your Mac's going to see the Focusrite. Plug it up, and then look at it and see if it sees it. Hook your microphone into your Focusrite. Of course, you don't have to run phantom power because you get this short SMB7 that you got. You don't have to run a phantom power. Just run up there, send signal, check your input level on your channel, and see if you got signal. If you don't, something else is going on. So, your big up brick, my brother. How's them Mandem doing? Huh? I'm not. Yo, big up, my brother. How's all them Mandem doing? You lost me on that one. Let's see. For hip hop or R&B, mics are not really genre specific. Sorry, Chronic. I just, I didn't really know. I'm sorry, my bad. I didn't know what that means, my man. Mics are not really genre specific. They're just more of how the character, how you're trying to capture the voice. That's what you're trying to look in a microphone, really. How's Track Live Productions? It said, Peas, what's going on? Welcome to the welcome to the channel. Christ says, on a serious note, I'm into Russian music. I really love the price. Assault on Stalingrad by Nikolai Raga. It's so aggressive in the trampoline. Okay, I'm not familiar with Russian music, so I'm gonna have to take your word on that. Ronald says, troubleshoot, my man. He's telling Alfredo troubleshoot. And of course, Alfredo says, I have no problems with the Focusrite. It's in the mixer. That's the issue. Like I said, a lot of times you got to go to a mixer, and there's some setups in that mixer you have to do to get it to talk. And you would think, once again, Personas would make it pretty much. You would think they would make the protocol where it'd be natural for the live mixers to talk to the software, but no, this is kind of complicated, which is frustrating. You would think. So, and then Brian said it featured the Korean musician Lee. And I'm not familiar. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with this. Not to be mean, but being in the United States, we don't get a lot of foreign artists. So a lot of international artists. So I'm not familiar with a lot of those. Whether they're from Japan or Korea, or unless they're popular in the United States. That's just not to be mean, but we don't get a lot of the foreign artists. Now, Joaquim says, I've had that idea for years to build a USB full-size 16-channel console with a standard channel strip layout, fully assignable knobs and faders, similar to the Control 4024, but plug and play like you said. Yeah, I mean, once again, I don't know what's going on with Personas in their live mixers. You would think they would use protocol that makes their mixers automatically talk to their software like Studio One. I don't know why, because Studio One is like their number one DAW software. So that would be a no-brainer to me. I think that Personas need to go back to their research and marketing department and revamp that and come up with a firmware update to update their mixers so they automatically set up in Studio One. I think that's what they should do. Tracklight Production, do you use a specific bus compressor? I actually, believe it or not, I use the SSL bus compressor, but it's the plugin. I also use the T-Rex version of the SSL bus compressor. That is my favorite. So that's the one I like. So Jacko says, hi. Hi, Jacko. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you tuning in. Tracklight says, I'm looking into the Audioscape or Warm Audio Bus Compressor. I think either one. Me too. Believe it or not, I'm looking at the Warm Audio Bus Compressor myself. Audioscape might be a little bit more. Audioscapers, they make a lot less of them, so they're harder to get. Most of the time, Audioscape stuff is on back order, especially their LA2A clones and their 1176 clones. So you probably can get the Warm Audio faster, but I heard nothing but great things about the Warm Audio Bus Compressor. So, yeah. Hello says, I got the Telefunken M80 not long ago. Those are good mics. A lot of studios like to use the M80s for rooms, but says not long ago. And for the price, I think it's one of my best vocal mics. $700 cheaper than a couple of others I have. Yep, and like I said, the M80. A lot of people aren't familiar with most people think when they think of Telefunken, they think of the 250, the Elon 251. But the M80, the M60, M65. So you don't have Lee Key? No, I don't. I've never even heard of them. And the sad part, when I was in the Army, I've been to Korea. I've been stationed in Korea 3 times. But no, I'm not familiar with them. But I haven't been to Korea since 2000. So it's been over 20-something years. So come on, he's a class. Never heard of him, sorry. And like I said, I've been to Korea, but when you Americanize and you hear mainly American music for the most part, you don't get a chance to really get exposed to a lot of international artists. So do you know IP Freely? No, I'm not familiar with IP Freely. I'm old school, so you gotta forgive me on that. What's the best microphone for hip hop and R&B strictly for vocals? There really isn't one, Alfredo. There really isn't. Believe it or not, no microphone is really, because believe it or not, it's your entire signal chain. The preamps, the compressor, and everything that's going into the D and going into your audio interface that goes to your DAW can actually affect the sound and characteristics along with just the mic itself. The room, everything else can affect the mic. But if you, like I said, a really good mic that you want to be safe with, that's going to be good, that's actually all around for vocals, for male and female, believe it or not, for most microphones are the 47 and the 251. Those are some of the safest mics.
that you can go with as far as vocals, but there's really no mic, because the Rode NT1 is an extremely popular mic for vocals, especially a lot of guys that have studios that do a lot of hip hop have a Rode NT1. So that might be something that you might want to check out. The Rode NT1. I got the Rode NT2s, but you know, but I would definitely check those out. Okay. It says yeah, track linesman, do I use the plug-in SSL with the analog desk? I actually do. Believe it or not, I actually use the bus compressor. I sure do. And it works. So it says as a bus compressor, I sure do. But believe it or not, I don't have a bus compressor. Believe it or not, my bus compressor, I use the Alesis CLX 440, because it's not a very aggressive. The way I set it is not very aggressive when I'm using an actual analog pulse gear in a rack. I use the CLX 440. It's not as on the high end. It's a little bit of on the high end. You just gotta really catch the way you set it. But I really dial in really careful when I'm using an actual at least CLX 440. But yeah, I actually mainly use the SL on my master bus in the DAW. Is one guy waited 2 years for his oh yeah, ESL. Oh yeah, Audioscape, they're great companies, but they can be, because they're on high demand and they're not even in the United States. I believe they're overseas. So you have to wait for them to build them. They build to order, and they build so many, and then because they're hand built. So that's why the Audioscapes. So let's see. Ron says, what about damn all? You all think sometime we ain't gonna do everything for you to make a hip hop. Oh, he just Hello, sir. I was Navy from 93 to 99 to 03. 9903. Okay. I was Army. I'm familiar with Navy. I'm not gonna ask you like what ship you were on and what was your rate and all that, because I wouldn't know. You can say, yeah, I was on the USS Ronald Reagan, which I know is a carrier, or I was on the USS, George W. Bush or whatever. My rate was boatman mate. I don't know. I know my sister was in the Navy. She was a PR, she got out of the Navy as a PR too. They didn't change it now to search and rescue. It used to be parachute rigger. But she was stationed out there in Coronado Island, and she did her first tour in Hawaii at Pearl Harbor. Then she went to Coronado Island for 3 years. Then she went to Norfolk, Virginia. That's what she didn't like. I guess that's because, the headquarters, and they're a lot more strict. I don't know. But yeah, she was Navy for 8 years. But I was Army, so ain't nothing wrong with that, though. Tracklight Productions, I use the Rode NT1A. Top is literally scratchy. It's a little scratchy, but IEQ on the way in to compensate. So, like I said, I have the NT2As. I like them a lot. So, so now Alfredo says, hold on, he said, Ron's talking to Alfredo. Come on. So please tell me the routing you use, the plug-in as an insert on the desk. One's right there. Oh, the lighting's kind of bright. Well, my two stereo as so that my inserts go through my patch bay, and then I patch in on my patch bay the compressor. So that's what I patch in. I patch the compressor. I can patch my Orban EQ right there. You can't see it over my shoulder. The Orban EQ, and that compressor that goes on my stereo master bus over there. So that's where I patch, but it's packed in through my patch bay. So, oh, hello says the USS Constellation carrier.
arms aircraft mech. Oh, okay. I don't know, but is that fleet? I don't know the fleet. Is it Fleet 7, Fleet 6? I don't know. Like I said, I don't know a lot of the Navy term, because I've heard people that in the Navy, they'll use terms like division and stuff like that. Well, to division to us is like an entire unit for a post, but that's not what divisions are different in the Navy. You got your section, division, and stuff like that, and your division chief, and you got your section petty officer and shop and section division, then you got your command and and all that. Like for y'all, command master chief would be our master chief, the command master chief. For us in the Army, we call him command sergeant major. But a fleet to y'all would be like a brigade or division to the Army. So let's see. Alfredo, I got my associate degree at SA Institute in Nashville in 2020, and I feel like I have enough there. Like I said, I did a thing on schools. I think you can never go wrong with school. My only thing with schools is I don't feel that what they charge students and recording studios closing, especially the major one, and then a lot of these studios try to get internships, and there's just so much that you can learn. I just don't feel at the call. I think audio engineering schools were awesome about 20 to 30 years ago, but what they're charging these students, I think they're just charging too much. That's just my personal opinion. So hello said Lavina. I don't even remember what fleet, but I was in Squadron VF2 F-14 Tomcat. So were you like, I don't know if you were in the aviation portion of the Navy? Did you do like aviation mechanic on the electronics or the avionics? Because like me, out in the Army, of course, we call them grunts. I did that grunt work, that infantry combat stuff for men, but then I went over to the aviation side where I was what they call an avionics mechanic. And I worked on the aviation electronics for Apaches. And I did that for years. I fixed all the electronics, the weapon systems, everything inside the helicopter that deal with the electronics on the front of the helicopters. The PNVS, which we call Pilot Night Vision System, that's how he sees at night. I fixed those. The day side subassembly that's on the front, he can do laser targeting. I did that. The night side subassemblies, which he could forward-looking infrared, I fixed those. So I did that kind of stuff. So it just depends. AYJP says they might have hot chicks at an audio school. Yeah, there's a lot of females that go to audio engineering school. So, like I said, I've never been. I took some courses, but I've never been. But I've been doing this for 30 years. So, it would be pointless for me to go to audio engineering school because a lot of the guys that are coming out of audio engineering school, I'm showing these guys stuff, as far as whether it's gain staging or proper mic placement or whatever, whether you're trying to, dealing with bandwidth on EQs or whatever, it just depends. But you can definitely learn a lot in school, for sure. I said, yeah, hello. So yeah, I was a mechanic working structures and hydraulics on the F-14. Avionics is awesome, man. Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I said, my sister went Navy. I was actually going to go Air Force because my hometown in Ohio, we have Wright Patterson Air Force Base. Air Force recruiter was never there. I looked at the Navy, but I was like, nah, I don't want to be on a ship because, the sleeping quarters are tight. You got 1, 2, 3, I gotta have my space. So that's why I joined the Army. My uncle tried to get me to go Marine because he was a Marine Corps. And he tried to get me to join the Marine Corps, and I would have went to Parris Island. He was a DI at Parris Island at the time. I was not going to go to join the Marine Corps while he's a DI there because, of course, family wouldn't matter, and plus ain't no guarantee I would have went in his platoon anyway. But I wasn't trying to join the Marine Corps, so I joined the Army. So, the rest is history. ALJP for future collabs or something. Let me see. Oh, so that would be dope. Missed it. Let's see, for future collabs or something. It must be something. I must be missing something there. Yeah, hello. So, yeah, I'm here in Columbus, Ohio. Yeah, those sleeping quarters suck and cough. Are you from Columbus? Hello, because I'm from Dayton. I'm from Dayton, so I used to go Columbus all the time. Come on Interstate 70, getting right there off of Broad Street. Broad goes forever. It's a long street. Go downtown Columbus. You know, but yeah, the sleeping quarters suck. And those coffin rags. Yeah, I saw sleeping quarters on because I've been on a carrier for a day, and of course that's where I learned that everyone wears different color, like greens and yellows and reds and and all that. And you got to see that some of the jets take off and to see the catapulter lines and all that and how they would land. I got to see all that really, 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 really loud. But I was like, oh, I couldn't do this for forever, So that's why I said I couldn't be in the Navy. I like being in the Army. So, collab. Oh, say I don't collab with that. No music. Oh, he's talking about collabing with chicks and stuff like that. He said that no music. Yeah, that would be pointless, if they don't know music, But it says I'm here in Cincinnati. Been here. I'm from Cincinnati, but been in Columbus for 15 years. Oh yeah, see, yep. So I had to go to Cincinnati because we had to go to Cincinnati Memphis when I joined from Dayton. But yeah, Ohio, that's my hometown. I got my own thoughts about my home state. So I know a lot of people say, well, you're from Ohio and you look like a black guy and you do music and all that, but you got all the Puerto Ricans that because my dad's Puerto Rican. That's why. If y'all want to know, my dad's Puerto Rican. So that's why. Not every Puerto Rican from Puerto Rico went to, not every Puerto Rican went to New York or Boston or Chicago. We got a lot of PRs in Cleveland and everything else. So, I want anybody got any other questions? Like I said, I first started off, we was talking about the music industry when I first started the chat, and we were talking about record labels and being associated. Then we, of course, start talking about, but like I said, I'll try to talk a little bit about everything. And then Hosea, I can't say I like Ohio myself. For those that are not from Ohio or know anything about Ohio, my hometown, of course, the Wright brothers that invented the airplane. A lot of people think they were from North Carolina. No, they're not from North Carolina. They're from Dayton. The original bicycle. They start off as bicycle, because the person that owned Huffy, and they found out the Wright brothers was going to do trying to build an airplane. Well, Huffy got behind it because they built bicycles, and they repaired them. So the Wright brothers from Ohio. But anyhow, Ohio got a lot of and it had a lot of industrial. But Ohio's changed. I started seeing Ohio starting going down to me. It started going down to me around the 80s. And it's funny that you say, hello, that you're from Cincinnati. It's funny, every time I go down Interstate 75, and even when I go Cincinnati, when I'm coming, because I live in Tennessee, when I go back to Ohio to visit, it's like there's always construction on Interstate 75. That's annoying to me, my ex-wife went to UC, University of Cincinnati. She was a Bearcat. So she loves the Bearcat because she went to UC. But going up to Columbus, of course, naturally being in Columbus and Ohio State, one thing that would suck for me was, whether it's the Browns or the Bengals for our football teams, we just ain't seen the Super Bowl. But Ohio State, our college, we always been a Big Ten. Ohio State, we off the chain with our football. So I follow our college more than I follow our football team. Same thing with a basketball team. We only got the Cleveland Cavaliers. We don't have any other pro basketball team. And then of course, Cincinnati Rangers be hot when we had Pete Rose.
But the Reds is kind of hit or miss, and then they don't know what they call the Cleveland Indians no more. They just, I don't know what they call them up there in Cleveland, but yeah. I mean, Ohio, I'm mixed because I'm from there, so I'm up and down about it. So it says, yep, that construction doesn't stop. I-71 for 20 years. Bengals are doing good right now. Yeah, I know. Fine, they're starting to get a lot better consistently, but it just the Bengals, and we thought we were gonna do something when we had Kozar as the quarterback for the Bengals, but the Bengals and the Browns, the Browns was going 2-14, and I just, you try to be a Browns or Bengals. I try to support our football team, but I know Ohio State. At least we're going to win with Ohio State. So that's just me. Yeah. And then 71, of course, going to 71 because that's how you get to Kings Island. Anyone from Ohio, we all go to Kings Island. So that's my favorite amusement part of all. Especially, I don't care if the Beast is still a wooden roller coaster. I still love riding the Beast, even though there are better roller coasters now. But the Beast is still my favorite roller coaster ride. But let me see. Kim says, audio engineering school is good as a broad-based learning foundation, but it's hard to teach instinct or how to listen or understand what you're hearing. And, I think sometimes, like any school environment, when it comes to audio, let's say they're going to teach you, because they're going to teach you on it. Most of them going to have an SSL, but they can have any type of mixing console. A lot of times, the issue that I have sometimes, let's say you learn everything about the SSL, let's say they have an SSL 4000, and everyone knows the SSL 4000. Unlike the routings that are down here, they're up here, and you're going to learn, of course, your signal flow, and they have buttons like float, and they're going to have, they got more intuitive EQ and everything else on it. The issue is you can master an SSL console in school, but unless you get into a studio that has an SSL, because you might go to a school that had an API, you might go to a studio that have an API or a need, and you didn't learn it. It wouldn't be very hard to adjust what you learn, but I think and plus we're all using channel strips anyway. But on top of that, most people that are going to come out of audio engineering school are probably not going to even touch a lot of rack gear and consoles. Most people are going to start working in the DAW with the mixer and plugins out of everything anyway. But it's like I said, I really can't really say too much about audio engineering school because I didn't spend years in audio engineering school. But I just think that there's so much you can learn, especially with the internet now. I just wouldn't see myself spending $30, $40, $50, $60, $100,000. I just couldn't see it. But I'm not going to knock audio engineering school because I guarantee there's probably a few things that you're going to learn in school that some people that hadn't went to school hasn't. But I pretty much have that mastered. So. We did have King Griffin. You talking about for the Reds? We did have King Griffin. He played baseball for the Reds for a minute, but King Griffin ain't been played with the Reds in a minute. I don't know what happened to King Griffin. I hadn't followed him, but we did have King Griffin. Like I'm saying, that's what I mean. I bet they have good broads at an A school, and it depends. It just depends. Like I said, I don't know. I can't speak on that because I didn't go to audio engineering school like that. So, like I said, took a couple of courses, but I never needed to, in my opinion, just never needed to go. Right, Kim said, right. You can bend consoles differently because of the frequency response. And if you learn, one thing you're going to learn about analog consoles is, for example, like an MCI J500 as an example, they have an input and output transformers on every channel. But every transformer and every circuit for every channel will change in characteristics. Your mic pre is going to change a little bit of characteristics. So, for example, channel 1, mic pre might be stellar, but channels 14's mic pre might have a little, or the EQ, because inside these consoles, it doesn't matter whether they are some, if you know the EQ circuit is built on capacitors, potentiometers, and resistors. And the capacitors, that's why they recap consoles, because they heat. And sometimes the high frequencies of that particular channel might not pass audio very well. And so you'll find yourself overcompensating certain frequency bands because you don't realize, you think it's the frequencies not coming through on the channel when it really, the console needs to be recapped. This is some of the downside to analog gear. But once you get stuff like these recapped, and especially they upgrade the op amps in them, and sometimes they upgrade the faders, and they upgrade a lot of the circuits. Man, that analog fat and warmness is just hard to beat. Not saying you can't do it in the box, but it's hard to beat. So let me see. What else I'm missing? Is I learned from being hands-on, not from a book. And that's why I would tell anyone, in my personal opinion, I would tell people, I'm not telling people not to go to audio engineering school, but for $50,000, I built everything in this room for under $50,000, and I just would rather learn and just get hands-on practice. And I can do this all day because you're in the school, but if you own your gear, you do it all day, until you get it right. You're going to make, even come out of engineering school, you're still going to make mistakes because any school just teaches basics. The way you get good is just to do it over and over and gain experience. So you just have to do it. And that's how I've been doing it for 25 plus years. It's good to go over the books, though. Yeah, I mean, the books, like I said, and believe it or not, a lot of times, for example, this came out of a manual, and you can't really see, I don't feel like pulling it down. But it's a frequency manual that tells you exactly what to cut, what to boost on every different types of vocals or whatever. A lot of that kind of stuff is in a book. So that's why I had my little book when I was telling people, pick up books like this, Mixing Secrets, books like this. Pick up recording books. There's lots of books, and read them, and then practice them in your studio. Practice what you read, because that's what you're going to do in school anyway. Even though, let me see, I'm missing some of the conversation. Okay. Okay. So I'm really glad that everyone tuned in. I'm really glad that everyone tuned in and tuned in. I was trying to do these live feeds every Sunday. I want that I can interact. That gives everyone a chance to interact with everyone. That way you can post comments and it'll tell you exactly I can read your comments and we can interact and talk about it. That's what I love about the live stream. Even though I do read the comments that I post on the videos. But it is going on an hour and 20 minutes, which is actually long for pretty long for a video feed. I really do appreciate everyone tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. But yeah, hello. You said I got that book, Mixing Secret. Is a good book. It's a good one. I think so too. It's just books like that. There's lots of them out there. And just read them and buy yourself some gear and just apply. You're going to make mistakes. But once you make mistakes, you just, you learn from your mistakes and you just keep doing it. That's how I did it. I didn't know how to use the compressor. When I first started going to recording studios in the 90s, like you're talking 1994, when I started going to a recording studio, I had no idea how to set up a compressor. I was looking at, I didn't understand threshold, attack, release, ratio, and all. I'm like, whoa, threshold, ratio, makeup game. Like, then I would see something like, peak limiter and expander and all that. Excite. I'm like, what does all that mean? I never understood the threshold was the point that you're setting. Threshold is like it's holding y'all to compress until it hits that threshold. Then it's going to compress. Didn't know that for years. And then I realized, we think, well, threshold, then the attack is just how fast it's going to, compress. But the ratio and the release and the combination of the attack, the release and the ratio is really forming the shape of how that compressor is affecting what it's compressing. It's the ratio, because 8-to-1, for every 8 in, you only let 1 out, or 4-to-1. It doesn't squash it as much. And I had to learn, you look at the peaks of your volume levels in your audio signal, and you're looking at the peaks. You got all these crazy peaks. Well, you might want to compress some of that. You might not want to, you might want to run it. If you got crazy peaks that are extremely, you might want to run a little 8-to-1, whatever, and then make it up with the makeup gain. And then you might want to, between how fast, sometimes you got a really aggressive peak volume level. You might want to get a little bit faster, but sometimes if you do too fast of an attack, you might crush a little bit of, it might start to crush it. So you might have to back off a little bit on the attack, and then of course, the same way the release. Sometimes some compressors that you put on auto release. So it just depends on how that, but we'll talk about that probably next time. So, yeah, compressors, believe it or not, and I'll end the video on this. Believe it or not, compressors and understanding, whether VRMU, VCA, opto, compressors, or whatever the case, and how they change the characteristics is what people mess up a lot. Setting the settings on a compressor, people can mess that up. Your EQ, people can mess that up. Not setting your pre-delays and your delays or decays on reverbs, or not understanding how to use reverbs or delays. Believe it or not, other than that, and just getting your levels set properly, and because we're always using DAWs, getting your level set right in your DAW through your interface. But these are all things that a lot of people mess up, believe it or not. And I'll tell you one thing, if you're using keyboards, how it's going to sound better is definitely running a stereo out of your keyboard. Like if you got a Yamaha Motif or a Montage or a Chord Chronos or whatever, make sure you're running stereo out and you're running a left and right into your audio interface, because they're programmed. Some of the sounds oscillate to create a stereo. It gets a more fat, wider sound stereo. I always record my keyboards in stereo. I never record them in mono. That's how the keyboards get fatter in the recording. But, like I said, we'll talk about all that in the next chat on recording, because I think a lot of people, that's the biggest thing, is getting a good recording and then using the proper processing, because some people over process and things like that, and make sure we're getting the right compressors, getting the right, setting the EQs right, and things like that, microphones and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that in the next one. But I'm going to go ahead and sign off, because it is 1 hour and 22 minutes. And we're going to have to sign off, and I'm just going to have to chat with everyone next time. Says, before I go, let me ask you, what chord do I need to record in stereo? If you're anything stereo, if it's balanced, try to run balance. But you can use, at least if you're read your manual, make sure your outputs are, if they're balanced outs, even if they're left and right, stereo left and right. It may say mono left and the right. If there's TSR, which stand for tip reading sleeve, if they're a balanced cable, run that. Because it's not only going to run in stereo, but you're going to reduce noise. We don't want ground noise, buzzes getting into your signal. You want it to be clean as possible. So that's why you want to run stereo outs. And your audio, almost all interfaces, believe it or not, are stereo input. You may not think that, but most of them are stereo inputs. So if you only got a 2-channel stereo input interface, run left and right into your interface, left and right stereo, and you'll be amazed how much better they, especially if you get a nice clean signal. You don't have to run up to 0, but try to run at least negative 18. Give yourself some headroom in the recording. But other than that, we'll talk about, like I said, we'll talk all that in the next video on recording. But I really do appreciate everyone tuning in. Thanks, LAAY, Y Kim, hello. Everyone that tuned in. Thanks, Tracklight Productions, Chronic. Everyone that tuned in, Alfredo. Thanks all of y'all for having tuned in. And I'm going to see y'all on the next one. I really appreciate y'all tuning in. So
I really do appreciate y'all supporting the channel, and we'll see you on the next live chat next week. If I don't have to run into the issues. Other than that, thanks for tuning. We'll see you next one on the next live stream. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great one.